Thank you so much again, everybody, for joining us and tuning in to Bytes with Beepers. So this is the Black Public Relations Society of Atlanta, and we do this segment so that we can highlight members of Beepers, so that we connect you with people who have their fingerprint and footprint on the heart of public relations. And I am super excited for this conversation today. We are going to be chatting with senior contributor for women and celebrity ghostwriter, Miss Pauleanna Reed. Pauleanna, thank you so much for joining us today.
I'm really happy to be here.
So we want to get to it. So why I wanted to chat with you is because I know that you, as a writer, you're doing it from the outside and the inside, right? So being a celebrity ghostwriter, but then also being a senior contributor, I guess we can start with how did you get into writing, and then how did ghostwriting happen?
Absolutely. So I definitely think that we're all born with unique creative gifts. But as we get older, media messages, our teachers, our parents, our guidance counselor, dilute and pollute that. And so I stuck to my guns, right? Like for me, writing was always a place where life seemed peaceful and perfect. When I was bullied, when I seemed misunderstood, when I was outcasted, I doodle in my notebook, and I never lost that childlike wonder. You know what I mean? Like it was always a part of me. So just naturally, I think that when pursuing a dream of any kind, you should pursue the path that has least resistance, right? And so writing was really natural to me because, I was a blogger from way back when blogging just started back in like 2010. I loved reading. So it was just really natural to me. So I started as a blogger, and I allowed my dreams to creatively evolve. I think that's very, very important. You may think that I thought I was going to be a spoken word poet, the next Eric Jerome Dickey, like, right? That's how I started. But my dreams evolved over time as I became more exposed to different people, places, and things. So it went from spoken word to blogging, to becoming an author, to journalism, to I tried my hand at songwriting, right? But I still stayed within that lane until I found what felt natural to me. So what was really important to me was not just having a job, but really tapping into what my life assignment was, right? To amplify Black voices, and to help people see beyond the limits of their circumstances. And I achieve both those things through journalism and through ghostwriting.
I love that. So I have all these questions floating just from that one statement, right? It gave me all these questions. The very first question is, did you ever try the spoken word? Did you have people clapping for you, Pauleanna? Like, were we up there?
You know what? Back in the day, I didn't perform, but I would share my erotic writing on my blog and on Facebook.
I love it. I love it. And then I love that you said that you allowed yourself to go through all of these changes, right? It wasn't as if you're like, I need to do this and I'm going to like stick it out. Like you just moved as it kind of rode the wave with you. So I think it's important. Like, how do you share that with other people to say, listen, it doesn't have to be that one thing?
Sometimes the dream is actually the pre-dream to what you're actually trying to do. Like we have our mindset on, achieving A, not knowing that honestly, like God may have so much more in store for you. A is just like one tiny stepping stone, right? So I think it's important to be flexible. I think it's important to stay committed. I think most people do not stick to anything long enough to really master it. So when I am mentoring and I'm speaking to young adults or other colleagues in this industry, like I think it's very important for people to understand I have been writing professionally, getting paid for my work since 2010, right? I was one of the earlier bloggers. And so you have people who are coming in the industry and they're running out of steam after 10 weeks, 10 months, a year.
Right.
So I think it's really important to stick to it no matter what.
I love it. And I saw one of my associates shared a video that you made because you did mention work and getting paid for your writing. And so you made a video that was talking about workpreneurs, essentially, because some people try to minimize the fact that if you're working on your dreams, but still have to work a full-time job, that doesn't matter. So when I saw the video, I was like, oh man, I have to incorporate this into our interview. So how do you speak about that?
Yeah, so I was a side hustler for 10 years. I loved my job. I loved the corporate world up until a certain point. I think it all boils down to your value system and what you truly look for in a company. The reason why I could balance the reason why, although it wasn't easy, but the reason why I had room to exercise my creative muscles is because I looked for a job that was in alignment with that. If a job ever made me choose between my creative arts and them, they knew what time it was. You know what I mean? If, the other thing was I wanted a job that was millennial driven. I wanted unlimited PTO. I wanted bosses who could be mentors to me and teach me things. There's so many. I had my checklist. I think what frustrates people the most is the fact that they find it very hard to balance both. Mm-hmm. But I wasn't going to say yes to a contract or to a job position unless they understood, for one, that I have a life outside of work. And number two, that, I needed the other part of my lifestyle to maintain my sanity. That was a non-negotiable. And I feel like every Black woman should have a set of them.
And you know what? It's funny because that's exactly where I was going after that, because I was going to say so many women, Black women, and people in general, but feel like I can't tell a job no, or I can't demand certain things from a job. So
that's up to you. Like, they're not, no. No, because you know what, my father had always told me growing up that you could always get another job. Mm-hmm. Right? It's the pride we have to put aside. I watched my dad go from 6 figures to $12 and up again. Right? So like, he conditioned me to understand that like there are options and doors that are available to me. And if I needed to move on because, we were in alignment, you could move on. Mm-hmm. Right? If I needed to get a newspaper route, McDonald's, or find another whatever, but you can move on. There are options. People just don't want to be flexible. They don't want to eat bologna and cheese. What are you willing to sacrifice? I'm willing to put up a fight.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love it. So as a senior contributor and writer, and I know you mentioned books, so we'll get back to the books also, but I did want to ask you about your process when it comes to PR and publicists, because, we're always trying to build the connections. Actually, some don't always try to build the connections. Like we say, you need to have a connection. There needs to be a relationship. Some people are like, I don't know how to start the relationship. I don't know how to.
That's bullshit. You don't know how to start a relationship? We're grown. You don't know how to say hi? How are you? I love that article you wrote last week. I really have been enjoying your social content. You don't know how to comment. You don't know how to slide into DMs. Like, when people say things like that, I'm like, then you're in the wrong profession. Period.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to be harsh, but we got to stop coddling people. We got to stop, my biggest concern is critical thinking and people's ability to problem solve. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it's like, old school, when we were in school, we had to do long division, put pen to paper and cross over the one and cross out the, I just feel like people are not putting pen to paper and critically thinking, like, what's the next logical step in this equation? Mm-hmm. How can you apply that to life? How can you apply that to the situation at hand? If I'm a publicist and trying to build a connection with a publication, what makes the most sense right now? What should I be doing? You know what I mean? Like, come on.
So because we say it all of the time. And I think that one thing that newer individuals coming in fail to realize or understand is that communication. Like we all say we know how to communicate, but I don't think everyone communicates effectively, or that they know how to get across what it is that they're trying to say in a way that, to your point, makes sense.
But the thing is, we're human. I think that's the bare minimum. Understand that journalists are human, and understand that so many people approach us as if we have Forbes written on our forehead. Like, we just want genuine connection and relationship. Like, I just really appreciate someone who shows me love on a post or an article that I wrote, and organically building a relationship, because you know what? If we organically build a friendship and we are partners in this crazy matrix that we work in, mm-hmm. you're going to win in the long run. That short-term transaction that you're hungry for, I mean, our friendship is going to be very short-lived, if there even is a friendship.
Right. Now, you mentioned DMs. So obviously, we've had some conflict about that. So are you open to receiving DMs?
I'm open to a brief introduction via DM and giving me a heads up that an email is coming my way. I don't love pitches via DMs because I'm always on the move, and I'm not going to read 1,000 words in my DMs. It's just not going to happen. But I do always appreciate a heads up that an email's coming. And I've had people follow up a few times because my emails are crazy, follow up a few times to confirm that I received it. I always appreciate that.
I love it. I love it. And so how did you get to the first ghostwriting gig? What was that? How did that work out? Did you say in your back of your mind, like, I can write someone else's story, I can write this book, or did it just find you?
Absolutely. So what happened was, okay, so you have to learn how to connect the dots of your life. I think that's very important. So I was ghostwriting before I even knew what it was. In my corporate life, I was an executive assistant to presidents and CEOs. Mm-hmm. So I was naturally writing their emails, their speeches, their bios, business communications, etc. Okay. Mm-hmm. It wasn't until I picked up an article. This is why it's important to also stay curious and stay hungry and stay imaginative. I picked up an article in Forbes. This was 2014. I picked up an article and it introduced me to a woman who dropped out of school and she was making 6 figures ghostwriting. Mm-hmm. It planted a seed in my mind. From there, I then worked for one of my mentors, right? I worked for her agency. And my first assignment that she gave me was to write a speech for a supermodel who was going to speak at the Forbes Women's Summit in 2016. Okay. And then from there, once I, worked under her, I realized, I'm like, you know what, I can run with this. I really soaked in enough business acumen and knowledge. I know what I'm doing. And so I launched my agency late 2017. And now I have 11 kick-ass writers, all women of color. We call ourselves content ninjas. And we help the leaders and doers who are really shaping the future. We help them turn their personal stories into brand assets.
Love that. Love that. And so do you hire, like, is your team complete? Or are people freelancers with you? Are they welcome to say,
I'm always,
Pauleanna?
My eyes are always open. I think it's up to individuals who follow me. My loyal subscribers, they know my expectations. They know that a lot of people on my team have created their own roles, right? They know that, if you step to me and you see a problem that you could solve, then I'm always willing to listen. So yeah, like I always have my ear to the ground. I love working with writers who have very unique backgrounds, who have, really great experience. One of my writers, she used to be a TV and film agent, and we get a lot of requests for script doctoring and, and things of that nature. So if you have a unique skill set or a unique insight, or you come from a very specific industry that you feel like, we can cater to, yeah, I'm always down.
I love it. And I love, because I've never heard of script doctoring, like obviously,
yeah,
context clues, I can figure out what it is. But I think that's great that you say that, because one, they're creating their own roles. Two, you're creating these positions and these opportunities for Black women. So
that's the thing, you hit it. Yes, because listen, my industry is very white and very male. And I also I think I've done a very great job of branding myself as a ghostwriter. When people hear ghostwriting, they think of Pauleanna. My name is definitely in the conversation. And I want Black and brown women to know that this is a great, lucrative career option, right? Because I know publicists who have run out of steam, who are looking for a change. And honestly, journalism, it ain't that cute behind the scenes, right? Right. So I knew, again, we talked about a job versus life assignments. I knew journalism was a job. You know what I mean? If it definitely makes me happy, but it doesn't fulfill me. It's not something that I definitely see myself doing, 20 years from now. My career as a ghostwriter is my life assignment. I truly love being behind the scenes. I love advisory services. I love being a servant leader, right? I love helping people who are in positions of power. I love being someone who helps drive their narrative. And I think we need more women, more Black women in decision-making roles and in a seat at the table. And so that's exactly what I have created for myself.
I love that. And I hope you all that are watching are listening, because she's giving you who she is and how she is. She's giving you how to approach her and what the expectations are. So I hope you all are paying attention. So just for kind of to niche it down a little bit, if you could have your ideal pitches in your inbox, what would those be? How would they look?
Yeah, absolutely. So ideally the subject line would be what you think the title of the article would be.
Okay.
The body of the email is brief and to the point. You spelled my name correctly. How about that? Let's start there.
Wait, can I pause you for a second? My name is Adrienne. Girl, I have had it spelled so many different ways when it's in the email. Like you're looking at it. How are you spelling it wrong? I'm sorry. But
yeah. And you know what? Listen, if you end up spelling it wrong, but you catch yourself and you apologize, I'm cool. But don't just continue the email thread as if you ain't committed a crime.
Right.
So, but honestly, for me, it's always about what is the takeaway for the audience. Hands down, that is the biggest mistake that I see in my inbox. And most of the time I either decline or delete the email because I just don't have time to be going back and forth, right? So you're going to open up introducing yourself. You're going to open up personalizing the email, addressing something that I might have written that piques your interest, right? You know, why the client that you have is fitting for my column. And then you're going to proceed to tell me the brand story, tell me the founder story, attach, in addition to that, attach a bio. We'll talk about that in a second. But then the most important components, number one, you want to ground your pitch in either research and data, right? A case study. Like, why is it important? How does the pitch fit into a larger conversation? The next thing you want to do is address a real problem. People pitch me and they say, oh, my client can talk about how to network during a pandemic. I don't care about that. That is not a pressing issue. like just, very broad subject matter. Mm-hmm. I want to know what is the problem that your client can solve for my audience. My audience is someone who is millennial, entrepreneurial, they're solution oriented. They want to move the needle in their lives and careers. So it's not just about profiling your client's story. I don't necessarily care about your client. Like, I shouldn't say I don't care. I don't consider your personal story news. That's what it is. Right. Yep. And so out of your life map, your career map, what can you extract that would be the key lessons? And you should organize it in a bullet form, right? Really easy to pull apart. So my eyes can go directly there. What can your client contribute to the conversation that would be meaningful for my reader? Because that's what's most important to me. And then the last thing I'll say is, if you can attach as much additional, like pad the email with any links or case studies. I want to know that what you're bringing to the table, the methodology actually works. So it'd be really nice, like when people say, oh, she's a coach and she's she's earned $1 million in revenue and all these things. Okay, that's fine. But does her methodology actually works? Does her methodology actually work? Right. So like, show me case studies, proven success stories, testimonials. And the last thing I'll say is, attach a bio, attach a media kit, show me her website, because I want to know that she's the best person to speak to in this lane. So, I mean, that was a lot there, but like, I want to speak to the best of the best. I want to solve a problem for the audience. I need you to prove to me that your client is someone that I absolutely need to talk to.
Yeah, and it wasn't a lot. I mean, because any publicist or person who is trying to connect with you needs to be taking notes. Like, oh, right, let me pause this right here. Let me, because you've given them the method, like you've told them how it works. And another thing that I want to address, and I know you mentioned and kind of bullet pointed the bio, and, so many people don't really understand how bios work and how important they are. So I just wanted to, if you could speak to, and even as a writer, I'm sure you've seen some bad bios. Mm-hmm. So if you could just give us an example of what doesn't work when it comes to bios that people send you.
So, I mean, the bio is really supposed to highlight, there's two types of bios, right? So when I pen bios for clients, when my team pens bios for clients, we ask, do you want to involve a personal narrative, right? Or do you want to get straight to the point and really just highlight your career accomplishments? So it really just depends, right? Sometimes the personal narrative works because it gives me background, color, context as to how you arrived here and why this is like important to your mission. But then other times, your career highlights are fine. But here's the thing, I think people get really carried away with the awards and the accolades, which is fine. But I mean, we all know working in media, people also pay for that shit. So I don't really know if it's real. So I really just want to get down to what drives you, right? What informs your decisions? How does your business solve a problem? What type of consumer you're speaking to? And then how is the work that you're doing, how does it fit into a larger conversation at a community level, an industry level, or the world at large? It's like, someone pitches to me and let's say, oh, I have a hair salon. Like that to me, okay. And things I love when women, especially Black women, are doing their thing, making their money. However, you have to know where you're pitching. Yeah. Right? Forbes is a business publication. We are solving business problems. So perhaps I might not be the most attracted to a pitch surrounding an esthetician or a beauty guru unless she has some industry insight that my audience is dying to know that would help them in their, that can be applicable to whatever they're doing.
Right. No, that makes absolute sense. So I do want to circle back and talk about your books. So what are your books? What are you giving us, Pauleanna?
So I released my first book in 2014. It's called Everything I Couldn't Tell My Mother. Real quick, the reason why I wrote it is because I had some skeletons in my closet that I needed to get off my chest. I don't believe that you can achieve the blessings that's in store for you without letting go of baggage. So that was number one. Number two, my second book I released in 2018 is called Mixed Emotions, and it's in partnership with one of my business partners. His name is Andrew. And we pretty much just wrote a book, a blueprint of how we achieved building six-figure companies before the age of 30. So if for people who are early in their career, trying to pursue entrepreneurship, trying to balance their corporate career and whatnot, like it's a really great starting point for someone who is taking their first steps.
I love both of those titles. Like the titles are awesome. I love that.
Thank you.
And I skipped ahead of myself because you did mention, and you might beat me up for this, but you did mention people buying things. And it seems like Forbes is like the target. Like everybody's like, get on Forbes without a publicist or,
Yeah.
So working with Forbes, what do you think when you see these ads or when you see the
It's very interesting. It's like, and honestly, like we work in the matrix and one day I will be out of the matrix and I can't wait till that day comes. But it's just like people are so hungry and desperate. And you have to understand that when it's your time, you'll be moved to the front of the line. Like it will happen for you and not a minute sooner. So all these shortcuts people are trying to take. As a journalist, let me tell you something. I've been bribed, okay? People have offered me trips around the world, concert tickets, thousands of dollars, like just because they want to have a feature. How much do you charge? I don't charge anything because I stand by everything I write about. How about that? How about I'm one of the last few people that have integrity and morals.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it's not about the money for me. It's not about the money. It's about doing great work. So when someone approaches me that way, I would like to think that you want to be featured in a publication because you rightfully earned it, not because you bought your way in.
Right. Yeah. So that's what I was thinking too. And so when you obviously, because most of them don't have bylines, right? So like you can see it. And as publicists, we are trying to communicate with our clients that people can tell the difference between a real earned media opportunity and one that you purchase. So when you see these things, have you ever had a client or potential client that comes to you and says, hey, I was in Forbes, and you're looking at it like, no, you weren't.
I mean, honestly, like for me, I'm not going to work with anybody who just doesn't operate with intention. That's it. You know what I mean? So I don't want that energy. I don't want that karma. I would never put my job on the line for anybody, to be honest. Like it's not that serious. Yeah. So no, that's not something I mess with.
I love it. So what do you have coming up? Are you working on some new things? What's coming down the pipeline? Can you talk pipeline for Pauleanna? Say that 3 times fast.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? I'm just tightening up on my systems and processes within my business. I fired my money team. I shouldn't say, you know what? I won't say I fired.
Oh,
I'm transitioning. I think you have to check your circle every once in a while. So the money team that brought me to where I am today, it's just, it's time to take a new direction so I can get to where I'm going. And so I'm just really tightening up on things internally. I think there's something to be said about being excellent where you're at. So like, oftentimes we'll ask our girlfriends and we're talking about the next project and the next thing and the next da 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 da. And you know what? Like my team is really kick-ass where we are. We want to be excellent where we are. And before we move on to the next level, I just want to master this position. I want to hold this position, and own it. So that's really my intention. Outside of that, I'm just really passionate about teaching. So I do guest lectures at colleges and universities. So that's what I'm really excited about. I love bringing real world experience to the table because a lot of curriculums are very, very outdated. So that is something I'm passionate about. I sit on, an advisory board for a foundation and just public speaking, having really cool conversations like this one.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But I want to make sure that I put a red line under the fact that you are letting people know to not move too quickly, because so many people will be like, okay, I made it. Like, this is great.
Right.
Like I got here and now I need to just go to the next thing before you've mastered where you are. And so I love that you said that, because people don't always understand growth in its essence, right? Like we understand growing, but not necessarily growth. And so I'm glad that you mentioned that.
Let's put a pin on that. And I'm going to add to it. Girl, we got some chemistry going on. Listen, people don't understand that in order to succeed in business, like it requires talent. It requires you to actually be good. How can you refine your skills and perfect your skills if you are constantly just like on this trajectory? Like it's just really important I'm not telling anyone to stay stagnant, but just like really hone in on your craft. And, I'm taking time to take classes, and I am, every Sunday I carve out time to study my craft. Like you are always a student. So I just think that it's really important. Like, instead of just hopping onto the next project and the next thing and the next this, like, sometimes it's good to go back to the drawing board. You know what I mean? I take creative writing classes. I am reading a lot. So that's what I mean by, mastering where I'm at.
I love that. And I think that people sometimes feel like it's cliche to say never stop learning. But when you really understand what never stop learning means, then you can appreciate that.
Yeah, never stop learning means that you're always going to be in demand. You're always going to be at the top of your game. And you are always going to be a resource to somebody else. And when you are a resource, you will always get paid. You will always be okay. So yeah, hell yeah, I'm going to be a student, because you know what? I think it's really, really important to never lose sight of where you started,
I love it. Well, this has been our 30-minute chat, everybody. So we are so thankful for you, Pauleanna.
You said
30 minutes of me getting it right. Like, please tell everyone how they can find you, how they can connect with you.
Yeah, for sure. So my name is very unique. I'm everywhere on the internet. Pauleannareed.com for my personal website, the writer's block without the C.com for my ghostwriting services, and newgirlontheblock.com for my mentorship program.
I love it. Well, listen, everybody, if you have not joined Beepers already, please visit us, beepersatlanta.org. Please follow Pauleanna and connect with us next time for Bytes with Beepers. We appreciate you all. Have a great day.